So it is quite an important change to the approach that you have recommended both in the Auckland plan and in the unitary plan. The countryside living zone, I think Councillor Brewer has raised it yesterday, has been significantly expanded in parts of the Auckland as part of the recommended version of the planning maps by the panel. So that means there is more opportunity to transfer rural lots that do protect SEAs into the countryside living area, which was one of the issues that the panel raised as a concern. So we, as officers, we are recommending that you not reject the non-complying activity status for subdivision, but that you make sure that subdivision that does occur in those rural areas are for the valid reasons of protecting SEAs, not from some commitment by a landowner who might not be around to maintain that 5 hectares of planting into the future.
Right. Okay, councillors. Councillor Chris.
So, critical thing here is Mr. Pruitt, there is no surety that the additional, say, 5 hectares of Indigenous planting, there's no surety that they will be protected, that new planting will be protected.
So through the mechanisms that have been used in the past, you can require covenant on the land, you can require a monitoring fee. The experience of the two councils in the past is that puts a huge onus on council to be constantly monitoring and maintaining those areas, and it gets more difficult as land gets sold to new landowners because they were not part of those covenants. So, you know, our view is that why would we be setting up a process which means we're constantly monitoring because it's not an identified SEA. If somebody wants to do that and over time it turns into an SEA, then that's when the appropriate time to assess whether or not there should be a subdivision and a transfer of lots out of their property, because that would have shown a long-term commitment to creating an SEA.
So, Mr. Mayor, and why I support the staff rejection here is that this is just riddled with holes. There's so many buses you could drive through the recommendation that's coming back, and in the rural sector it's isolated, it's not observed by Aucklanders the same, so I support entirely the rejection as proposed by the staff.
Right, so you'll move it?
I'll move.
Any seconder here? Councillor Mike. Right, I'll put them together.
Can I say something? Unfortunately, my colleague's not here. I want to go with what the panel is saying. I mean, in reality, these SEAs take a long time to grow. It's not immediate. They need to be established. The reason they haven't been taken up so much in Rodney and Franklin in the past is because they are expensive. But they do actually, as we've seen in some areas, create a beautiful piece of bush on a piece of land that is usually not productive land. You have to remember, as Aucklanders who don't see out in the rural very often, that actually a lot of our land is not that productive. You know, we talk a lot about productive land. The land between south of the Dome, particularly down to Puhoi, is, as we've seen in the last few days, very open to slips, whereas if planting occurs, it actually does a lot to alleviate that. It is not productive as in, you know, sheep and beef and dairy. It has a lot of different uses. So I would just ask councillors to go with the panel's recommendations on this. Absolutely. And in most of the rural area, we would really like to see the panels. I mean, the panel have done a lot of work on this. And believe it or not, the panel actually do understand rural, because a lot of them are rural. So these recommendations from the panel have come through with a lot of work. Yep. And I'd ask councillors to support the panel's decision.
Very good, very good.
Right.
Very good.
C. We need to go back to page 37 item 11, which is page 35 rather, which is to be read together with 064. And this is the RPS, so Penny?
I did explain it at the beginning of my
You did.
explanation that we're doing both recommendations to topic 011 and to topic 064 because they are both about the rural subdivision. 011 is the RPS objectives and policies. The staff have recommended rejection of that because you need to reject, if that is the mind of the governing body, both the RPS objectives and policies and the and also the recommendation to reject it at the district plan rural zone level, which is 064.
Right, okay.
So perhaps I need to, with 011, there were three things that we were recommending acceptance of from the panel. At the RPS level, we used to have, in the notified version of the plan, we had an objective and policy which was about security of food supply. The panel has come back and said that they think it's more about the security, sorry, I just have to find it's more about the ensuring on the objective and policy we talk about the rural land areas making a significant contribution to food supply rather than security. So the officers accept that and are happy with the change in that objective at the RPS level and are recommending the governing body accepts that recommendation of the panel. The panel has also recommended the inclusion of landscape and biodiversity values into the RPS rural objectives. They were not originally in the RPS rural objectives in the notified version because they were placed in different parts of the plan, but we agree that that's an important aspect in the rural area, and so recommending you accept that. And lastly, the panel has taken a different approach to the management of prime soils. In the notified version, both prime soils and elite soils are places where you should avoid subdivision activity. They have taken a slightly lesser approach to prime soils, but have retained the protection of elite soils. The officers are also recommending you accept that change from the independent hearings panel. But then below that on the screen are those matters that we are recommending that you reject for the reasons I've given.
So I don't mind moving A, B and C
Yep.
on page 36.
I'll second.
Right, okay, do we have movers for D and D? Do we have a mover and a seconder for D?
For D.
Yes? This is the one that's
Yes,
directly
yes,
related
yes.
to item 064.
Yes.
Do we have a seconder?
I will.
Councillor Linda. Okay, thank you. Right, look, I'll put A, B and C. I think we've had a good discussion on that. Councillor Mike?
Yes, I think it's very important that we do recognise the importance of the security of food supply. In terms of sustainability, how do you measure that? Well, one measure would be that you don't develop over land that is productive. That would force you to import food from somewhere else. And I think it would be, this has long been debated, it's in the notified plan, and I think it's worth holding on to. It's not entirely about land supply, it's also about what land can produce, and land produces other things apart from houses.
Very good. Okay, right. Then on that basis, I'll put A, B and C together. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against. Then I'll put D.
I wish to record my vote against A
That's fine, we'll do that. Then I'll put
By
D.
division,
and
please.
C, thank you,
D by division.
and C, thank you.
So you're voting
for the,
6.4.1.
sorry,
No,
Not
no,
6.4.1.
no, we're
No,
D,
not there
we're,
yet.
we're at page
Not there yet.
37.
And a yes vote is to reject
We
and
need
a
to do
no
the
vote
policy
is...
first, we need to do the
No,
overarching
accept.
strategy.
Yes, accept it, Where's the
we're
motion?
voting on the staff rejecting D.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes vote is to reject it. and
No,
no
hang
vote
on,
is to
so accept it.
Deleting.
A no, we want to...
Councillors, just while the
Double
staff
negatives all the way
sort
through this.
themselves out, we've done on page 36 and 7, A, B and C.
37.
You voted to support those.
We're now going to do
Page
D,
37.
D on page 37.
That's right.
Oh, this is our agenda.
That's no.
6.4.1,
Yep.
topic 11.
So,
This is to do with topic, report topic 11, which on your agenda is referred to on page 38.
By division.
yeah.
Your Worship,
Aye.
Councillor and I.
Aye.
Councillor Brewer.
No.
Councillor Casey.
Yes.
Councillor Cashmore.
No, it's not there.
Sorry, no, conflict.
He's got a conflict.
Councillor Clow.
Yes.
Councillor Cooper.
Yes.
Councillor Darby.
Four.
Councillor Hulse.
Aye.
Councillor Crum.
Against.
Councillor Lee.
Aye.
Councillor Penrose.
Yes.
Councillor Quacks.
No.
Councillor Stewart.
Aye.
Councillor Sir John Walker.
Yep.
Councillor Watson.
Yes.
Councillor Webster.
No.
Councillor Wood.
No.
11C.
I lost that one.
Yep. So that was,
Now go to the,
yep, so this is on to page, oh, right, we need to cover all? Yeah, we need to cover all, that's good. Here's the cover all for topic 011, rural environment. So that's covered by the same, no, we need new movers. New moves, I'll move that. Seconder, please. Councillor Chris, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Thank you. Right, now we move to page,
81.
so, this is page